first of all, I'd like to point out that doing my thesis is actually a volunteer thing because I wanted to dedicate it to my 10-year-old self. See, when I was 4 years old, I started playing hockey as I'm a Canadian. And when I was at the age of 8, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I was constantly told by my physician and my parents that my immune system is not like everyone else's. So I vividly remember when I was 10 years old and I was sitting in my stall and the person next to me was telling me how disgusting and smelly my hockey gear smelled. And at first I was pretty embarrassed, but then I thought to myself, well, maybe this disgusting bacteria in my hockey gear is actually helping me, and that maybe I can actually practice my immune system and make it better, just like I practice for hockey. So I think it's that little spark of creativity that we have when we're little that sparks our career path going on. And especially in a science that's so subjectical, that you have to have that creativity and imagination to drive us forward. So that's my prelude. So I did my thesis on bacteria growth in hockey gear and the impact on the immune system. So when you think of bacteria, you probably think of negative adjectives such as pathogenic, disgusting, and thus forth. But bacteria can actually be beneficial to oneself. So I decided to focus on 4 areas of hockey gear. The chin strap of the hockey helmet, where your chin lies, the interior palm region of the hockey glove, the patellar region of your shin pads, and the dorsal ankle region of inside your hockey skate. So I did over a 3-week period, and I did 2 samples. So the first at the beginning and at the 3rd week. And I used sterile techniques throughout the whole thing. Thank you, Bree, for explaining all my techniques, because I didn't want to go into depth about them. So, thank you. So I think it's important to go into the immune system and some basic definitions. So the immune system can be categorized as 2 specificities. So the first is the innate immune system, which is your first line of attack. So it's non-specific. So any kind of bacteria or any pathogen that you see goes straight to the innate immune system. And this degrades it by several pathways. And the degradation of such bacteria goes to the adaptive immunity, which is the long-term immunity, which is very specific. So that can be categorized as your immune library. So you have to be exposed to bacteria and degrade that pathogens, so it can be stored in the adaptive immunity. So the next time you're exposed to it, you have a very efficient degradation of that pathway. Normal flora is what's all the bacteria that's normal on your skin that is, I guess you can categorize as healthy. It's everywhere. We have bacteria that's all over everywhere. But if you do have a cut, it can become optimistic, which can actually cause harm throughout. So the first one was the chin strap of the hockey helmet. Now this actually had the most concentration growth of bacteria there. We found Staphylococcus aureus and Staphylococcus epidermis, which is going to be a very common factor throughout this whole presentation. Over here we have Micrococcus luteus, which was antibiotic resistant over here. And the combination of Staph aureus and Staph epidermis and Micrococcus luteus is actually acne vulgaris, which we all know as acne. So very common on your facial region. And then also this green growth on the TSA plate was Pseudomonas aeruginosa. This is actually found in a lot of hospitals and burn patients. And one of the subjects was actually a nurse that can be can stay on you and be traveled throughout. The helmet was very interesting because each subject had different bacteria growth. So we all have our own bacteria. And then throughout the trials, there was actually different bacteria that was being grown. So you don't have the same bacteria that's on you a week before, which is very interesting to see throughout the whole experiment. This could be due to consumption of Gatorade, which is a sugar and a salt, which bacteria just thrive on. So very interesting. The shin guards, however, are probably the most boring aspect of the anaerobic. We just have Staphylococcus aureus and Staphylococcus epidermis that was being grown. The hockey gloves, your hands are being exposed to everything. So it was the most interesting and I guess most disgusting aspect of the hockey gear. Staphylococcus epidermis and aureus was found. Pseudomonas was also found. Klebsiella anomia which we can see with the EMB being grown here. That's actually fecal matter that's being grown on your hockey gloves, which is kind of, I guess, disgusting. So throughout that, these two are the most opportunistic bacteria. So make sure you wash your hands if you're ever going to play hockey. The hockey skates, surprisingly, was the least amount of concentration of growth, and only Staphylococcus aureus and epidermis was shown. By diluting the bacteria in the TSA broths, the helmet displayed the most concentration growth, 95%, whereas the least was at 75% of the skates. And the all gear contained the normal flora, Staphylococcus aureus and epidermis, which is totally fine. And then each participant had different bacteria at different areas. Therefore, your bacteria on your chin strap was different than the bacteria on your skates, which is very interesting. As well, different trials, you could have different bacteria, and each subject displayed its own different bacteria. Therefore, it can be argued that the repetition exposure of bacteria of hockey players initiates the innate immune system, which then recognized by the adaptive immunity. Therefore, the next time you're exposed to it, your body knows how to break down those pathogens. And then stored into the immunological library, I like to call it, for future exposure. So, in conclusion, hockey gear and hockey players, the bacteria being exposed can increase the innate and adaptive immunity compared to a non-hockey player. That's making them a little bit healthier in their immune system. Those are my references. And anybody have any questions?
It's more of a comment than a question. I thought it was interesting that the skates have less, because those are the things that don't usually get cleaned at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a figure skater, and I always think my skates are so gross, but now I feel encouraged because I know there's not that much bacteria. So.
Yeah, it's really interesting. All subjects did have socks on when they did play hockey, so it's not a direct exposure to the skin or the flora, and it's also almost an anaerobic aspect, and it actually is the easiest to dry out compared to other aspects. So yeah, I found that interesting as well, because that was my original hypothesis, that the skates and the gloves would have the most optimistic bacteria.
All right, thank you.